Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Christ consciousness. Now I'm picking up here on part 2 of witnesses. What's a witness? What's the importance about it? And this is a fairly complicated subject matter and very critical. Because if you're trying to analyze a particular person or thing, it's very important that you have some sort of energy there. And this is all part of subtle energy physics and understanding it. So, we've talked about the fact that you have to take anything physical and make it into a more vibrational or subtle energy product. Like if you're using a crystal, you would put it in water for a day or two, maybe even put it in the sun for an hour, and then remove the crystal and take a little bit of that water. You don't need a lot. Put it in a tiny container, and then you would have that energy there. Now you have available energy. You pretty much have close to 100% availability. If you put the crystal on there, you're down to 40% maybe. So we have to understand that. And there's a lot of very ignorant people out there that are teaching a lot of bad technologies here because they really don't know their subject matter. And it's just, it's frightening how ignorant people are. Now, one of the things that's so important is we talked about the Polaroid picture. Now, the Polaroid picture does have chemicals there where the photons go into and adhere to, so to speak, producing the picture. So you have a very physical reality there, or I should say energetically measurable reality. These cameras are easy to get. Our cameras, of course, give you a much more potent picture, as I've recommended, and these are critical to your success as well. You cut corners because of a few dollars, you will pay the price. People using signatures. Now, which is another way. I mean, there's several ways to get a witness of people other than using Polaroids. Now, it's very difficult in many instances to get Polaroids of people or something you want to work on. But they really are the best. And, instead of picking up things like soil samples, or if you go to Sedona to a vortex, all you need is one of our cameras, and you now have the energy from that particular spot imprinted onto a permanent energetic field of the Polaroid picture. So, and this is wonderful if you think about it. You can go to vortexes, you can go to haunted houses, you can take pictures of houses, you can go to places that are known to have great energy, maybe a sacred spot. All you've got to do is take the picture. Now, I used to pick up soil and other things, and rocks, other things. You don't need to do that. You just really need to take a camera of it, and then you can actually keep files of these very easily instead of having large physical objects, which tend to be a nuisance to have around. So you basically have a fantastic imprint of no matter what it is, because you got to remember the photonic energies that are produced in the film is a perfect subtle energy sample and witness of that energy. Now, if you use a rock again, even dirt, you have to make those into subtle energy again. So they're still very physical, so you're not getting the full energy there. You would basically, again, have to make these more of a homeopathic type preparation by putting the stone in water, sitting it in the sun for a few hours, and then, of course, taking the stone out and then putting the water in a small little probably tube or something. And basically, you do the same thing with the dirt. So you're trying to extract it, similar to making an herbal tincture. Now, when you take a physical herb, or a vitamin or anything else in its physical form, it has to be broken down. It has to go through the stomach, it has to go through the liver, it has to go through the kidneys before it enters the bloodstream. Well, this is a very inefficient and bad way of doing things. And oftentimes, you don't get many results. I mean, some people even pass supplements, particularly tablets, that don't particularly break down well. So what is the next best thing? Well, what people do is they use capsules. So you get the ground up powder and you put it in a gelatin-like capsule. And this, of course, opens in your stomach easier. Well, it's true. And it's a big step above tablets. You should always try and buy capsules whenever you can. A lot of things And of course, it's always good to take things with food so you get a breakdown process going on. But it's still inefficient. And remember, whether it's good or bad for you, it has to go through your liver and kidneys, which are already stressed out. So people think they're taking multi-mega doses of vitamins. Well, you're multi-mega dosing your kidneys and liver. It's not good for you. You are a micronutrient machine. You don't need a lot of it. What you need a lot of is a lot of assimilation. It's not what you take, it's what you assimilate. Now, this can be transferred directly over to radionics. So it's not what you put on there. Oh, this is a powerful stone. Well, if you can access the energy from it. Now, with our energy cells, this is the biggest problem with users. The energy is there. Can you access it? Well, we do a lot of things to make sure you get that energy. One of them is using very particular types of photons to shoot the energy from the actual cell to you in a very, quote, physical way. We use lasers for the third eye, the crown chakra, and any chakra or any body parts you want to shoot it into. We have wrist lasers that you insert the cell under, and it shoots red lasers at intensities into you. Very directly, and it actually goes directly into the bloodstream, the vibrational energies do. And of course, these are actual little medical devices, the wrist lasers, and this is a way of transferring energy. It's very important because what we've taken is even subtle energies that are vibrating out, that are there, that can be accessed to a large degree, relatively easier, but that's not enough. We want to get it in you, into your etheric body, so it can work fast and quickly. That's technology, and that's subtle energy physics from an educated person with a doctorate who's been doing this for 40 years, and it's important that you understand that. So when other people tell you that you don't need any of this stuff, and they're buffoonish idiots. I mean, some of these people are putting Hertzian energies through radionic machines. They build little circuit board garbage machines. I mean, this is not good tech. So the whole idea is that you have to be very careful, regardless of their self-appointed experts with really nothing behind them to prove much of anything. So the point is that it's very important who you work with when you come into areas of great speciality. You got to be careful who you're getting machines from. You got to be careful how you use them, and you've got to use any tool correctly or it's worthless. It doesn't matter if it's gold-plated and costs $1 million. If you don't use it correctly, well, nice little display item, put it on your coffee table. So the whole idea is that these are the type of things that are out there that you have to understand. So the actual use of Polaroids is essential, but not just the off-the-counter Polaroids. You need an amplified Polaroid where we put very special energies in there to transmute even these energies to be used to be grabbed at a higher condensed level so you get better results. So you either want to do this right or not. And people like to criticize technologies and say all this stuff is nonsense. You hear this particularly from the buffoonish regular science people who have cured what problems? We got all the free energy we can use, right? People are living to be 200. Yeah, because the doctors of science have done so much. Well, science and what modern science has done is nothing. None of our problems have been solved. They're corrupt, very egotistical individuals, overpaid scientists who get paid to think and not to produce. So, until something has reached the engineering stage where you actually apply something and prove that it works, it's worthless. The rest of it is just really mental masturbation, which regular scientists are really professional at. So when we understand all these things, we have to move on. So what are the other types? Now, there are ways of making different types of witnesses. Now, as I've stated, one of the problems with Polaroids is how do you get Fred's Polaroid picture? Well, especially the fact is that if he doesn't have, and getting him one of your camera and everything else, well, this is going to be a chore. But let's say you want it. It's difficult to get pictures of people. And if they're walking down the street and you take random pictures of people, it's not necessarily appreciated. You have to be a little sneaky, take pictures of houses and cars and other things when there isn't necessarily someone watching you. So this is all part of the process that we have to look at and understand as well. So Polaroids are fantastic, and they can be impractical. Great for using yourself, and you don't have to, all you got to do is hold the camera in front of you and click it. Again, remember, it's not the quality of the image, it's an energy picture. You're capturing energy. So whatever it looks like is fine. So I wouldn't waste a Polaroid. Oh, it don't look pretty enough. Well, that has nothing to do with it. As long as you're in the picture, it's fine. And this goes for anything. So you have relatives that you may be able to access easily, people you live with, your pets, friends, etc., that you have physical contact with. It's not difficult to get pictures of them generally, but still it's difficult. It's hard to just take a picture of somebody, even though there are a few people I know who do the ambush stuff. You know where those people are, and you just do it. What are they going to do? They're going to get pissed off at you? Well, so what? Life's a bitch. So the whole idea is that you can do that, but it can be very impractical. So what do you do? Well, generally, there are Polaroid cameras everywhere, and a lot of times you can find them inexpensive on places like eBay, or even buy one if you have to. Now, your typical Fuji camera with a little bit of film is usually $60 to $80, so it's not exactly cheap. Maybe you can find them cheaper somewhere else or online, find a used one, etc., that someone can use. But there are other ways of doing. Oh, yes, there is other ways of doing it. Now, you strictly can. There are energy factors, and there's a problem here because anytime you go down from the empowered Polaroid, you've got a problem because of the fact that you are not dealing. You're dealing with more physical energies again. But a great way to do things, and which has been done for years in radionics, has been using a drop of blood. People are so paranoid about blood. We're full of blood. So some people like to eat blood all the time. It's called a medium rare steak and all that other primitive eating of flesh that people love to do. So, and there's nothing wrong with blood and using your own blood. We do it all the time to analyze in regular medical situations. Well, there is all the elements of your life force are in your blood. Where is the other place that is easily accessible, and probably a little easier, is, of course, your hair. Now, your hair is a combination of what you've been doing for as long as that hair has been growing. So, your hair is full of whatever shampoo you use all the time. So if whatever ingredient in there, and hopefully everybody's using natural stuff now and getting away from all these toxins that really mess you up. So using natural soaps and shampoos and everything else is critical. And you can find some things out there that are not that expensive, but get rid of all those petroleum products which you get to rub all over your body. I would recommend that you get a quart of oil and just pour it on you, because that's exactly what you're doing with all these soaps and other things. So get the PBBs, all the other junk out of there, and try and get natural soaps as best you can. They're all irritants. They're bad for you. And it's shocking that, I've heard, and I'm still trying to think, is it real or not? But when you take a shower, you take in a quart of liquids. So the shower water that you are washing in, and of course, then you're rubbing stuff with that water on your body, is a lot more critical than people think. I came under this conclusion kind of strange. Here I was drinking, taking, hundreds of dollars of herbs every month, having special waters and other things, and I was using a crappy soap. And I wasn't filtering my shower water. These are all the things you must do. And this is part of the entire holistic understanding of life. It's not taking your care of yourself when you're sick. It's about not getting sick. And then you want to go to high states of empowerment, meaning you want to be well and then go up to the next level of empowerment, which is really where everything's at. But if you're rubbing toxins on you, if you're drinking bad water, and everybody should drink distilled water, and I have other lectures on this, which you should check out. And you also need to have a shower filter. These are readily available and they're inexpensive. And don't buy one, I had it for 3 years. These things are usually good for about 90 days. So make sure that you get you change your filter every 90 days, maybe more often depending on the quality of your water. There are all sorts of problems with water. Some water has horrible bacteria in it. Legionnaire disease is pandemic in the water all over Europe. It's also common in the United States because this is a bacteria that grows in water, which is all around us, and it can grow in your hot water heater because it's not hot enough. Very interesting. So this is a serious problem, and you're stressing your body out. How do you get rid of that? Well, if that's a problem in your area, they do have filters which tend to be a little more expensive that will filter these out. It's a tiny little horrible bacteria that's difficult to get rid of, but it can be anywhere. Generally, any kind of normal high-quality filter will get out pretty much all you need. You want to get out all the fluorides, the chlorines, all the other stuff that are in your water typically as well. These are all toxins that are generally not good for you if you're rubbing. And of course, you don't want to rub stuff. Don't use deodorants that have aluminum in it. Anything that has aluminum in it, run. Don't drink from aluminum cans. Run. This stuff builds up in your brain and has been linked to Alzheimer's. But in general, aluminum is very toxic in its processed form. Now, we all need aluminum in its regular form, and 18% of the earth is aluminum. So we need it in its natural form that you get it in different foods. It's one of those minerals people don't talk about because aluminum is so bad for you. But don't use aluminum pans. Don't use anything aluminum. This is processed aluminum, and it's something you want to stay away from if it comes into direct contact with food, drink, etc. You want to drink out of glass. Don't drink out of plastic. And remember, milk cartons are not paper. They are lined with plastic, as most metal cans are, food cans. They're lined with plastic. So you're eating plastic. And then we eat about a credit card worth of plastic a month. Is that good for you? I don't think so, mister. So the whole idea is that we wonder why we have so many liver and kidney and why we are having problems with diabetes so much with all these toxins we're taking in that are really trashing these organs. So getting away from all of that stuff, of course, you can build the energy fields up, but that's a whole nother discussion. Getting back to witnesses, which I diverse there. Another way to make a witness is that you have someone cut a tiny. Now, you don't need to cut a lock of hair. You cut half an inch of hair off. Half an inch by a quarter of an inch, just a little bit. And then you take that hair, you put it on some Scotch tape, and then you use that Scotch tape to put on a piece of white paper. You also can have that person then sign that piece of white paper. And of course, keep it small. We don't want a giant sheet. This is something that should be, 1 inch by 2 inch. So you tape the hair on there. You have the person put their signature on there. And as a little bonus, you can put a drop of blood there. Now, people who want, you can sterilize a regular pin and just poke your finger to do that. So you dip the pin in alcohol or whatever, make sure it's clean. The same thing with your hand. Then you just get enough just to get a little prick there. Now, you can also go to the store and get a diabetic tool that is designed for this. It's a little puncture thing that'll the skin to get that if you're going to be doing this frequently. Or maybe you know someone who is a diabetic. There's enough of them out there. You can borrow theirs with a new attachment to it that is the little pin that's on there, and use that as well. And then you put a drop of blood on there. So you've got hair, you've got signature, and you got a drop of blood. Now, all of these are again in the physical realm. So they are not energetic in nature, except maybe the blood is. But blood is physical as well. But it is a watery substance. So you're still not getting it to that level. Now, a signature has a certain energetic factor to it, but it is still a signature, and it is unique. And as such, that is unique that it does have. So those three things put together are a pretty good witness. Now, this stops the need to get a Polaroid picture if it is not possible. But nothing, you've got the very top, and you're talking about subtle energies here, and that's not a joke. This is special, unique type of energy. So the whole idea is, though, is you need a clean, excellent energy representation or witness of whatever you're doing. But that witness has to be taken from the physical and put into the subtle energy factor, which the process is done automatically for you when you use a proper Polaroid camera from Radionic Tech. So hopefully that's clear. I don't want to keep repeating that. It's just boring. So the whole idea is that we move into the fact that this is another great witness. And when you start doing that, I mean, you could actually, many times at Radionics, they were using a drop of blood as a way that this process was done without question. So you just put a drop of blood there on a piece of paper, and you didn't really need anything else. And technically you don't, but I like to make sure we have a multiple energy source to connect to a person. The problem with hair is that it is 100% physical. So it hasn't been made into its vibrational energy field. Blood is the closest thing, as I've mentioned, and a signature is what? A signature is a vibrational image or a sigil of the person. So that is pretty good. So when you combine all these three, you have something that works well for a person that you can't get a picture of. You don't want to get a regular 35 millimeter picture. You don't want to get something that's digitally printed out. And I don't care how cutie it looks. That's good for photo albums. You put it in a photo album. That looks good, Margaret. So the whole idea is that that's wonderful, but it is not energetic in any way whatsoever. Nothing digital has a high level of energetics in it. Now, people are trying to use this because this is the technology of the day. But that's just the fact of making it easy. Put energy into a memory chip or something else. Well, this works to a degree, but the point is it doesn't work well. Now, there are certain things that are cruder that worked a little better, like reel-to-reel tapes, cassette tapes. Well, basically those were metal on plastic, and those kind of held images. But they're still inferior to what happens when you're using photons to seal something in a chemical structure. So the whole idea is that then vibrates that. So you've got all this photon energy that's in this chemical structure, and the photon energies are at the level it can be used. So hopefully everybody gets that. But there are different ways to do it. Now, a lot of times when so if you wanted to, let's say, get the rate of an herb or something, well, you would go out and get the herb in its form, and of course powder's probably best, and what do? So you could put that on a little slide like you use in a microscope, and then you can put that on your witness plate. You could just pour it on the witness plate, or you could actually just put a tablet on there. But what do we got the problem of again? So we got the problem again is that it's not at a form it can be used well. I think I jumped over that. I forgot to include when I was talking about the breakdown of things. It's what you absorb. But the bottom line is that's why when you use nutrients to absorb the best kind of nutrients you can take, the worst starts off with tablets because of the breakdown problem. The second worst really is capsules. You've got a powder in you, but it's just breaking it down. So what is the best way to take anything? It's amazing how fast things get in your bloodstream, especially if they're in a particular form. But the best way to take things is with a liquid. Other people would take a liquid and then spray it in your mouth, and that goes into your system instantly. But you're still using a liquid, and of course this is another way to avoid having everything going through your liver, kidneys, and stomach, which is going to change it, break it down, and it doesn't go right into the bloodstream. It takes a while. And how much has been lost through that process? Well, it could be quite a bit because most likely your kidneys and liver aren't functioning perfectly. So the whole idea is liquids are always the best. Now, this is difficult and generally expensive to get. This is one of the problems. Now, when you have an herb, what is the best way to take an herb? Well, generally it's a liquid, but what do they call that? Certain liquids? Generally, they're called tinctures, which are gotten through the extraction process, usually using alcohol, which I've talked about. Do check out my lectures on those. It's critical that you work with herbs, and you can work with herbs very inexpensively if you do it right. So the whole idea is that this is part of the process that you need to go through and figure it all out. But what you do is you get a tincture, and these tinctures are very expensive. So it usually takes a minimum of 90 days. I keep mine permanently. Some things I've had for years, and I don't see any breakdown of it. but you get high content alcohol. Some people use Everclear. Any good alcohol, I try and use a little higher, 50% alcohol, 55. But even regular 40% alcohol, your typical vodka or whiskey, is certainly good for the extraction process. So you put the herb in there, and it's real complicated. You pour the booze on it. You then let it sit there for 3 months minimum before you can use it. And of course, while it's sitting there, you go in there and spin it and shake it. Always spin clockwise. And what's happening? It's extracting the essence from that particular herb. So what you're doing now, your body if your body does this by taking a powder in and breaking it down, well, the efficiency of getting the essence of that herb is pretty much, I think you're only getting like 30-40% of it. If you take a tincture, you're getting 60 to 80% of the benefits of it. So you can see, and secondly, not only is it a powerful tincture, but it goes right into your bloodstream as best as it can by just putting that tincture in your mouth. Really efficient, great way to do it. That's the way to do it. Now, you're trying that same hopefully everybody understands that. And as a radionic practitioner, you should be a skilled herbist. That's part of this whole area. So it's not just using machines, it's a holistic understanding of everything in life. That's what makes a master. I train masters, plain and simple. And our technology is made for the highest possible use and to get results as fast as possible. But some things require higher levels of training, and that's up to the individual. We try and push people there quickly and make sure that we cut through all the nonsense. But so the whole idea is that's what you're trying to do. So that's kind of the process. You start off with an herb, and this would be an energy signature, and then you get down to something that is very potent because it's been extracted and it's been made vibrational. Now, homeopathics go even further. They would take that physical thing, put it into a gallon of water, shake it, and then this would create an energy in there that is more potent than using the regular herb. There's a problem here of how this all works in the bigger picture, but that's the basic understanding behind homeopathy. Is you want to eliminate the physical entirely when you only get down to the subtle energy of it. And in practice, this makes sense. I should say in theory, this makes sense. In practice, we're not that sure with all that stuff because it may not be made in a way that is good enough when you're physically doing it. When you're using a machine, which is based on a higher level of subtle energy physics, there's a big difference. So when we get to that, we all need to understand how everything is working and how all these, what is the best way to get a connection to something. So you always want to take the physical and make it into the vibrational to start with, and then you want to put it on your machines and start analyzing it and changing that into the ultimate physical, which is turning into what's considered a cosmic code. Now, a cosmic code is the code for something, or the energetic numeral symbol. So we turn everything into numbers, and there's a practicality to this, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I combine numbers with shape vibrations or sigils or images, which are very powerful, as well as numbers. But we have decided to go into numbers, and this is how this technology works because it is practical. How could you have a dial of symbols? I guess you could, and then you assemble the symbols together to create this unique rate. But generally, you use numbers. Numbers, when you push them together, if they're not numbers that mean something, meaning a count or money or whatever, they're just symbols. They don't mean 2 or 9 or 4. No, when you push them all together, and there's 9 of these, this is a sigil, and it represents and vibrates whatever that number is connected to. So the whole idea is that's what you want to get on something, to get that particular number from it. Now, once you have that, you have the essence of that particular. You have the core, the informational energetic field signature in the universe. There's only one for everything of that particular item. So that means you're directly connected to it. So if you meditate on this, or you put it in a machine, or you put it in, particularly in a symbolic box, which numbers work fantastically in, you are sending that beautiful energy. So it is mind screwing. So it's something that makes complete and total subtle energy physics sense. But we do this with everything. I mean, every time we make up a symbol for something, and this is typical with regular physics, is that they use all these symbols to represent numbers, and then the numbers aren't good enough. They add symbols and all sorts of weird, strange things. And I think it was Feynman who came up with a whole system of just symbols to mean things, which make a lot of sense. And he was eliminating a lot of the mathematics. So this is true. And, printed symbols and so forth are shockingly powerful. And we'll go into that in another lecture. But just something written on a piece of paper, with any kind of pen or pencil on a white piece of paper, is mind-screwing what it can do and how it affects you bio-ness. So this is how the things, your entire biology, it can weaken you, it can add power to you. It's amazing what you can actually do with these things. It's just mind-blowing that something like that would be that potent. That's why we have to get away from the physicality of the electromagnetic spectrum. People have been making electromagnetic spectrum radionic machines for 100 years, kinda, and of course we use metals because that's what's available. But is that it? Well, it isn't it, because that's not the energy we're using. We're using energy that far surpasses that, and until we get into these new energies, we're never going to get anywhere. We're still doing very primitive stuff. We haven't figured out the brain. AI is a joke. You can't copy the human mind no matter what you do. Processing huge amounts of information doesn't mean that you are copying the function of the human brain. It's just not true. So getting back to witnesses, there's a problem then. So there's a couple of ways. What are other witnesses? And we'll close it up for part 2 here. Other witnesses are people, if you want to connect to them, well, there's a lot of things that are very specific to that person. Everybody, unless you're dead, or somehow can avoid it. You can't really avoid it anymore. I've been avoiding using cell phones for many years. You can't. Everything is now double verified. You want money? Well, we got to call you and get your code. You want to get onto your accounts anywhere? You want to get onto eBay? You want to get onto Amazon? Well, we got to call you. So, and to a certain extent, I guess this is a good security measure, even though it's very difficult because it means only you can access things. Well, what about the other phone numbers? It's very difficult to function as a community if one person has a phone that has to be verified. So I guess it's good to a degree, but I don't know if all of this extra security is needed all that much, but we could debate that. But you have to have a phone anyway. You keep in contact with everybody. You carry this toxic piece of junk with you. So I'm not sure that's necessarily an inconvenience. I mean, technically. And why do they want to call you? What is a telephone interesting about? Well, a telephone is very selective of you. Telephones have to have a particular number for that particular person, place, and thing. Now, do you understand that? It's very user-specific. There isn't, well, I kind of got the number. Well, no, you can't kind of get the number because you're going to get somebody else's number. So, oh, well, it was close. Well, that don't count. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. It doesn't count anywhere else. So your phone number is you. Plain and simple. Very specifically you. No one else. So very few things are like that. Your home address, well, it could be an apartment building. That's not really you. And you probably live with somebody else. So it's not really you. It's kind of, again, it's a horseshoes hand grenade situation. So you have to look at something. What else is that? But phone numbers are very... The other thing that is very you generally, particularly since people, hey, security, they got to put in this weird number. For question mark, dollar sign, slash. Oh, yeah. Nobody will get this. What are you doing in your email that you need that security? And I just talked to her. I said, this is regular business. This is not James Bond world. What are you into? Their security is good for certain things, but if you think you have security, it's kind of a joke. But the bottom line is when you personalize something to that degree, or put something weird in there, spell your name different, or add a number after it, guess what? That's 100% you and only you. Again, it's like a phone number. You can't, I kind of got the email now. Well, it was close. Well, again, close don't count. So the whole idea is that these are very specific to that person. The exciting thing, or even you could call it frightening thing about that, as long as you have somebody's email, you can nail them or connect to them personally by sending energy using that as your witness to send to somebody. Now, it is very, very specific to that person. It is better than a signature in many, many aspects. So this is a way that, if you don't have signatures, and, again, it's going to be difficult getting hair, blood, and signatures. You may be able to get signatures of people sign documents and other things. This is a great way to kind of key into that person, because signatures are very specific to that person. They're an indirect number code because nobody signed. But I sign my name different every time. But the whole idea is that people, a signature is very unique to that person. Everybody's signature, I guess, is different to a certain extent, maybe a large extent. Some people customize their signatures and everything else. So it's very much that person. That's why signatures are good, and you can get that. But a great thing to do would be get the signature, get the email, and if you can get their phone number, well, you've got the three most connected to that person that no one else on this planet has. So talking about an indirect cosmic code, these are cosmic codes in their own way. Now you can use those to get the higher cosmic code that is used in radionics. But these are great targeting tools. So if you wanted to connect to a person, you wanted to analyze them, you can use these numbers and send that in, because that you are directly connected. Or you connect to that energy if you're analyzing. So if you're trying to figure out what's going on with that person, you can use their email. I use a lot of photos because there is a certain connection to people when I do readings and so forth. I like the photos because you get a more feel for it. But the more you keep things human-based, the more errors and problems you run into. When you start getting into higher energetic workings, it's better actually to use an email, a telephone number, even a signature, which is kind of a sigil of that person. So the whole idea is then you're working right from there. And of course, looking at pictures gives you a certain comfort, but it is in terms of because you're accustomed to doing things like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the best. So you got to think different. We're in a whole new reality. Radionics is an old, awkward system that started about 120 years ago with very primitive understandings, and that went with all that. Very primitive machines were made. It found that these machines mysteriously worked by Abrams because they didn't make any electrical sense or anything else. He originally started off with machines that were more based in logic or electricity, and that changed. And so what we've got into is some very simple things that you're using to really connect with this very higher energy. It is not psychic energy. It's a higher form of consciousness energy, which is a big difference between psychic, which has been turned into a foul word, and consciousness, which encompasses not only yourself, but the universe. So hopefully that has assisted people here. Again, we'll pick up this on part 3.